But I would say definitely formed an addiction. I'm being accused of something which I don't feel. So I think it's like when you kind of go against your intuition, your gut, it can come back to bite you. We can be turned against each other so easily that someone who lived together before would now kill each other. It's like history is repeating itself. I can be at peace. Finally got me in.
Did it, bro?
Took me like 7 months.
Mate, it's good, man. It's nice to catch
Yeah,
up.
I don't really like doing many things. Do you know what I mean?
I know,
like
man.
talking, because my opinion's always changing.
Yeah,
Like,
but that's
opinions are so
fine.
changeable. It's like when you come out, I don't want to make definitive statements.
Yeah, well, that's it. So that's kind of the point of
But
it.
you've caught me in a calm place.
Yeah, you're good today.
Yeah.
So I guess we should kind of explain that. Welcome back to the process. David Vujanic is with
Yo.
us. It's good to sit down with you, mate. We've kind of we've been trying to do this for a little while,
We have been, yeah.
and you've sort of I don't know, you didn't. There were certain days you didn't feel like doing it, basically, which is fine. Which I was totally
it's
cool
like
with.
you book it in,
Yeah.
and then it comes to that day, and you're like, oh man, I just don't want to speak today. I don't
get-
have
mate,
much
I
to
get
say.
it.
So I think like it's hard for me sometimes, maybe in general, maybe people in the creative world or whatever, to like have a schedule and like commit to things.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure that's probably not the greatest thing in the world, but now
Have you
I
not
was
had
like,
much of a
but
schedule
you-
then over these years?
No, obviously at Copa 90 we had like
your
one or two
Mondays,
things
yeah.
a week, and you kind of build stuff around that.
Yeah.
I think now since kind of becoming freelance again properly, there hasn't been since August.
Yeah.
So it's been a bit mad. Obviously we film on Monday, Sunday for our weekly football
Yeah,
show,
yeah.
me and Poet.
Loving the
But-
locations on that, mate.
Yeah, man. It's almost like going against everything that we've been told that we kind of should do.
Yeah.
It's like have a studio set up, like, do it here, do it, this is how it... Because YouTube used to be very raw and rough, and then all of a sudden I think it kind of switched to these
Try
kind
and take it back
of
there.
organised... It's like almost TV came to YouTube,
Yeah.
and now it's like studio based. It's like,
So
make
you-
sure it looks good.
'cause
I'm
when I
like,
saw
no,
that-
film on the street.
Yeah, man. Because when I saw that, I was like, are they going to keep this up?
We have
Yeah.
14 weeks deep
done
of
well.
filming on the street.
Done really well.
Comments under.
Just a bit of admin. The Court, the beautiful place, the Court, which is a members club, is where Jimi Hendrix played his first gig in the UK. They're letting us use this lovely table and these seats and
nice
stuff.
table.
So shout out to them, thank you to them. And a little thing I'm starting to do with this podcast is I'm putting a tweet, I've got to put a little like Christmas list of guests together, but I'm going to tweet that person when I put out a podcast. So if you want to support the podcast and help me try and get that next person, then check out that tweet and tell them that they should do this interview, because that might help me next year, because I'd love to get the kind of keep it moving in terms of guests and stuff like that.
Bang.
I want to talk about being freelance, because we've both done that. Well, and I've sort of gone into that world kind of for the first time. And you've obviously sort of had a long period of time with Copa 90 and then moved on to other things. Yeah, how have you found the last 4 months?
Really cool.
Yeah?
Challenging, cool, but I don't regret it, and I have been enjoying it. I mean, I'd say the depths of my soul, I am just a wild creative, and to be tamed, or allow myself to be tamed, or tame myself, shall I say,
Yeah.
kind of goes against my inner callings, which are a bit more wild.
Right.
But of course, that's it. With age and perhaps experience, I've in general become a bit more calm. But there are still other creative things I want to do and get into. So it's been fine, man. Obviously, there's challenges and getting to emails and the anxieties at times of like, oh my God, when am I going to get paid? What's the next thing?
Yes.
All this stuff. I think we do go through it. We're kind of forced to challenge those things. But I don't think they're negative things. I think in all negative things, there lies a positive.
Yeah.
Yin and yang. So.
Speaking on a kind of personal note, we were saying it just before we started actually, I was like, I've found it really strange, really sort of weird, like being in your own space, because it's not something I've kind of had to do that much. So moving on and sort of doing that and being, as I say, like on your own and in your own mind a lot, that's something I've really had to kind of, and it feels like it's come in waves for me, and then once that wave passes, I feel like there's like a new layer of I've got a little bit hardened. I've learned a little bit about why am I comparing myself to that, or why am I concentrating on
like
that? Yeah,
I can totally relate to that. I think that's
I've really struggled with it though. I'll be honest.
No, it is a struggle. I don't think it's like an easy thing to do, because what you're doing is because I feel maybe we're left to our own devices.
Yeah.
Our brains go off into madness world. And as you said, like, but then I think what's the beauty about that is you can challenge those things. And then after that layer goes, there's like almost like a layer of peace. Like you've learned something about yourself.
Yeah, oh, massively.
Like, oh, I didn't need to compare myself. Oh, wow, I used to do that a lot before. I think now because you have more time to yourself, you can actually, these things can rise to surface. All these maybe fears and doubts, etc. And you can really face them head on, which I don't think many people get the opportunity to do.
That's true. I should look at it that way, really.
We cover these things up a lot with, like, you know, our habits and our addictions and social media, maybe a drink or smoke or whatever it is someone might do. I think that's the beauty of having time and facing all these things.
I think the thing for me is that, like, it's almost like triggers as well. Like I remember thinking about it. I like it's Instagram for me. I'm deleting that. I delete that like 3 times a week.
What do you delete? I do that a lot as well.
Oh, I'm feeling it off.
Oh, you do that?
Out.
I do that sometimes.
I need to get rid of it. That's really been good for me, because then that's the mad thing. It's like when you forget, you will forget it's there. Those things that are getting in your way. That's what I found in these last sort of few months. What I've also learned is that on different days you can kind of lean different ways. As a person, as a creative, where do you find yourself naturally leaning? Because I think, does that make sense?
Like, what's your kind of general state?
Another thing I've just recently done, I've done like 30 days of spinning. And within it, I've really like sort of dissected the idea of a challenge, because every one of those spinning sessions it's a challenge, and that's literally the point. And there's an instructor there that sort of nudges you towards challenging yourself. They tell you to turn it and make it harder. And so within that, you kind of then, in those spaces, weirdly, you find like mad clarity on things. Like, it's crazy. It's all on my phone. Like the next as soon as I get out, I'll write down these like little mantras and different things that you kind of zone in, because I think because you're so sort of lost in pushing yourself, but also focused on that moment, then weirdly like stuff just like comes to you. For me, like I've found sport and exercise like amazing for that in terms of finding like clarity or peace or whatever. But what I've learned from that whole thing is that you deep down, like I'm quite durable, but I also doubt myself a lot. Another thing we were saying before we started was like reassurance. Like I feel like I kind of I need to sort of find a way for me reassuring myself to be enough. So when I mean leaning, when you're in those sort of awkward spaces in your mind, where do you lean? Because I get the impression you're one of those, I've felt that already in 10 minutes chatting to you, is that, you do think about stuff, right?
Oh yeah, incredibly a lot. From many different angles.
Yeah, that's cool.
Meditation helps a lot. So that's something I've been doing over the years quite heavily. So just trying to get to a place of silence within my head is something I've been training myself to kind of do over the years.
So in terms of the trigger and the leaning, is it kind of, you're just like, there's too much going on in that?
Yeah, because for me it's almost like it's like old habits and thought patterns. It's like an idea or something, and then it will be like, but what will happen if I do it? Maybe will that trigger something here? Will that offend people? Can I do that here? Is this even me? Do I even want to do this idea? Is that kind of old me? Is it new me? Does this idea even make sense? And when I start kind of overly questioning these things, at least the conflict, I'd say anxieties, and then I might just go on my phone and say, fuck it, I'm just going to go and do this, or I'm going to distract myself and I don't know, have a wank, or whatever it is.
Not at the moment.
I'm trying not to, but
you should share that. Is amazing.
It's like focus. It's like kind of focusing inwardly, because I think everything in the external world is almost like it doesn't feed that. What it does is it brings you out, but nothing in our, I think, current climate of how we live points us inwards.
Okay.
And I've been lucky enough that I've maybe had the experience to go a bit more inwards to understand myself.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of on that journey, and that's kind of like an everyday journey. Like a couple of days ago, I was quite anxious. I was like, I couldn't make a decision. I can be quite indecisive at times, because I think when you overboard yourself with thinking about all the options, you can get stuck. What's that kind of like there's like a name for it. It's like I don't know, option paralysis or something. When there's like so many options, but you can view every angle, and you struggle to break through because you don't know what to do.
But I guess you're also not concentrating on you, be that, and the good sides of you, I guess, as well.
Exactly.
Which will probably get you to where you need to be to kind of calm yourself down a little bit, right?
Yeah, and that maybe following that intuition as well. I mean, it's a learning process. I think I'd say perhaps in life we start quite pure. We kind of we pick up all of these society's expectations and everybody that's around us, and we become almost, I don't want to say tainted, but we become these rigid forms which aren't our true nature. And then what happens is you reach kind of like a low point or a bottom, and then it's down to you to unlearn all those things.
Do you think it's for you and the career that you've had? Because it was, so I've kind of, been there in a much smaller capacity, like by the side of you, sort of watching this whole world create itself and this landscape create itself. Do you think that it's been a weird time for you to go through the last sort of 7-8 years when you're kind of part of that whole world and breaking new ground, and when you're breaking new ground you don't really know what the good things and the bad things are?
No fucking clue what's going on.
So like going back to the start of say Copa 90 and getting into that, there's what do you look at? I want to see sort of both sides of it. What do you look at from that time with like huge fondness, and what do you look at and go, that was maybe a little bit damaging for me?
I wouldn't say I view any of it as damaging, because I think in perception is almost like a reality, and a lot of my maybe darkest moments and my toughest moments in life have been perhaps the ones I've learned from the most, rather than the positives. But just experiencing football and working with my friend and going to all these different countries, achieving so many of, not even achieving, but experiencing a lot of these things that I thought were impossible and were my kind of own little stories and dreams that I had in my head come to life and manifest was it incredible. Yeah. So the 7 years there were really a real blessing for me. Like I really enjoyed them.
But when you're talking about like external stuff, like Copa 90, forget it being Copa 90, it doesn't need a name. It's more kind of the idea you were living in the world that is Twitter. All right, Twitter's a thing now.
Yeah,
YouTube's a thing now, and they weren't things.
Yeah.
And I think you get into bad, not bad, it doesn't always have to be bad, but I think it's a general understanding now that, phones are addictive, social media is...
I'm an addict.
It's good and bad.
I'm trying to curb that, but I would say I definitely formed an addiction to Twitter, Instagram, social media, validation seeking, comparing yourself. Yeah. I think mentally it's a very tricky place to be, because you can inform a character which even after a while you don't believe in anymore. So I kind of I've over the last 2 years kind of stepped away from it a little bit. Yeah. I don't post as much on my own channel. I don't do stories as much. I don't really like Instagram stories. I do think it can form you as a character, and it can lead to expectations for you to keep a character up. And it's hard to detach from what you're putting out there if you're not aware of how the validation affects you or doesn't affect you. Yeah, especially I think it's tricky, man. It's a very tricky place to navigate, but at the same time I wouldn't have wanted it any other way, because through the difficulties I've been learning a lot about myself.
So that character, what was the character that you didn't enjoy?
It's like always being the entertainer. After a while, you're not always entertaining, are you? Yeah. Like, nah, I'm not like entertaining. Like, I'm not an entertainer. I can be. Hey, what's up?
No, I get what you mean.
I like that role, and I enjoy making people laugh, and I enjoy conversation, and I think these are beautiful things to connect people with. And I love dance. I love movement. I think all these things are great. But I think it's like if you form this thing in your head that you always have to do that, which I have had in my life a few times. You can get a bit lost and fragmented.
Can you remember a moment where you were like just exhausted?
Yeah,
from
quite
that
a few times, and just like, I need to do something new. Like I haven't done something in a while. I need to just do something, and you just do something because you think it's new, or I haven't. I got into politics a little bit in 2017, and I was like, well, people expect me now to be political. I should write about what's happening, and okay, I'll just write. And you don't even believe it after a while.
Or you're not certain of it.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I like, I've always liked my content, and my best content and the best things that I've done in my life have always been from a place of like clarity and knowing, like, I really want to do this because this is the effect and this is what I'm doing it for.
Yeah.
I think the more you're kind of, but it's good. I think it's good to have those moments where you don't know who you are.
Yeah,
Because then you
couldn't agree more.
can find yourself again, and then you can also, I think, understand people better. Because the more we process and go through, I think, painful moments, conflict, places of maybe what people call darkness, we can relate to people we don't agree with and people we disagree with, and you can see yourself in another person. I think the more we can do that, maybe as human beings, it'll be a bit more peaceful.
I think that's the big thing about this podcast for me, is like, this is like, you got no rules. That's your thing, is like no rules.
Specs.
This is no. Oh, is that Specs thing?
That's Specs.
Ah, right.
Specs is no rules, 100%.
Sorry.
But
Sorry,
I mean, me and
Specs.
Poet say it a lot on our show, and our audience is almost just like taking it
on.
and just,
But it's good,
everything
like,
is no rules. But,
yeah,
which
why not?
is, I definitely,
Like your pants the other day.
I used,
You should, what was it? A jumper as pants.
Yeah.
No rules.
I didn't have boxers at home yet, and I was like, I don't want to go like commando because it's a bit cold. So I got a sweatshirt, and let me show you my boxers.
No rules. I love it.
There's absolutely no rules. No, there isn't. That's the thing that I think.
Yeah.
The more we step into the world of that there are rules, that's where the restrictions start coming. But there really aren't any. It's all imagined and created.
And the sort of the possibility for an element of anger or outrage or whatever, which is everywhere. But yeah, so with this podcast, it's no answers. I'm more about let's figure out, like, what are you thinking about right now? What questions have you got in your mind at the moment, and have a conversation about those kind of things. We are recording this today, the 13th of God, what month is it?
It's
December.
Friday, isn't it?
Friday the 13th. Yeah.
No.
But the day after the election.
Yeah. I was watching that
And
last
so
night.
when you talk about the politics and stuff like that, how did you feel about the election?
I don't particularly have a view of it. I did before. 2017 is like when I kind of first voted and firmly believed in perhaps Corbyn and Labour, or should I say him more than Labour?
Was there a run up to that, or was that was Grenfell? Did Grenfell play a big part in terms of you feeling more
passionately
passionate
involved? Yeah, I think Grenfell triggered many things in my own life, which kind of rose to the surface. And having grown up in like inner city London and lived in an estate, moved around a lot in many different areas in London. My friends are from all different places in the world, as am I, and obviously coming here as like an asylum seeker. I come from a similar background to people that passed away, sadly.
Yeah.
So seeing that burn and seeing that building burn, I think was really kind of painful.
Yeah.
And to process that was painful, and I don't know, but it kind of birthed something in me of like, I really want to speak out about this. And I think Corbyn at that time was running, and then it all kind of meshed together.
Yeah, and then you did an amazing interview with him as well.
Yeah, I did an interview with Corbyn twice, and I think it was authentic at that time.
Yeah.
But then after a while, I became a bit inauthentic, speaking about social issues and things which I didn't even understand or could relate to. And then it became a bit inauthentic, I'd say. Because it wasn't from a place of truth. It was from a place of like intellect.
Well, there's a thing. Loz, on one of the other podcasts, Loz has said this to me, and I always thought it was really interesting. It's like when you get excited, when you don't know, say, a skill or whatever, you look at it really like face value.
Yeah.
And then the more you get into it, the more you realise there's so much that you need to know about this kind of stuff. And then you you almost hit a wall where you go,
fuck.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Like, God, wow, I don't know a thing here, right?
Yeah.
But I've listened to the Will Poulter podcast recently, which is brilliant. And you were talking about, was it international relations?
Yeah, I studied that
at
university.
That.
Yeah.
So what was that about, and why did you choose it, and what did you get from it?
I mean, obviously my background is like ex-Yugoslavia, Serbian. I was kind of born during the Yugoslav Wars. And naturally, at home, there's a lot of politics. People always speaking about politics. It's a political region. And I ended up studying at A-level, and then I was like, well, my dad's quite traditional.
Do you enjoy politics?
Not now, not necessarily. I don't
What
enjoy
about the
any
broader
element of
idea
it.
of
I'm
it?
actually quite anti-establishment in general.
Yeah.
So my kind of take on it is I don't really believe in the establishment. I do think it's a lot of smokes and mirrors.
Yeah.
I don't think it's honest. I think it plays with people's identities to divide and conquer. And that's why even before 2017, I didn't really vote. I voted for like Green once.
Yeah.
But I couldn't bring myself to vote for the Tories, of course, and even Labour because of the things they did in Iraq and even Yugoslavia, there was bombing. So for me, it was like it didn't feel genuine from my experience to support any of them.
Yeah.
And then 2017 came and I kind of felt this guy represented my...
Yeah, and
you're mirroring, right?
But I think it's okay to be... You're a passionate guy, so it's okay to be
Yeah.
excited about something
Yeah.
as well. I don't think that's something to be
But for me, it
regretful
was like
about.
after that 2017 thing, I wouldn't say I felt used, but I think a lot of these parties, they get involved and they need to get involved with young people, and I don't know, it felt a bit like...
It felt fake.
Yeah. But in general, and then like you kind of see the approach of maybe the parties and having this kind of maybe experience within it is fascinating because you're like, whoa, I'm being accused of something which I don't feel in my heart. I don't think that's true. And then you're kind of apologizing, and then the party has kind of, they're contacting you to like say something, and you're like, I didn't ask for this. Like I've just come, but I think that's from the element of because the second interview I did with him, I didn't even really want to do it.
Really?
I kind of thought, I'll do this because it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Whereas when I first interviewed him, I was like, I believe in this, I'm interviewing him, So I think it's like when you kind of go against your intuition, your gut, it can come back to bite you. And it did, but I'm glad it did.
Yeah, well,
Because I
this
kind
goes
of
back to what you were
learned-
saying before. Yeah, you almost need to get stung a few times to be a bit more measured down the line. The one thing I'm intrigued to know is, I wonder how you feel about this. Is there a part of you that feels like it's not worth it to kind of put yourself out there in terms of your political beliefs? Do you feel a bit weary?
But you know what it is? I don't particularly hold any political beliefs. I don't think you need to be wary. I think everybody has their own experiences and thoughts, and you're eligible to put them all out, and however you put them out, you can never know what's going to come back. I've stepped away because I don't believe in the two-party system. I don't think they represent people. I think there's a lot of interest behind the kind of the mirrors of politics and the institutions. And that's because it's been my experience, and I've seen what's happened in Yugoslavia. I've met nationalists. I know how that can manifest into conflict and danger and everything else that comes with it. But also, I'm not a fan of the good intention thing. So we're going to go save the world by bombing it. So in general, for me, my political time, I'd say in terms of traditional politics is done. And it's a reflection of our society as well, the fact that the Tories have now got a massive, massive majority, and I, for example, even if I did vote, I'm in such a safe seat that
it feels pointless.
But for me, I think that's my democratic right as well, is to not partake in something which I believe isn't true to me or even for the world. But at the same time, maybe sometimes things need to go really bad for them to
because that's
get better. I want to look at the positive. I don't want it to be like.
And I think that's really it's in terms of being stung and things like that. That can happen, and I feel like that would be a shame to a point. Like, what if someone who I think that so many people are excited by, entertained by, but also relate to. Yeah. And I think people understand that I think from day one you have different opinions on things, and you've not shied away from that. But you also have good vibes. I think that's there's no doubt about that. So that's one thing that would make me a touch sad, is that if you didn't feel okay with kind of, or you felt sort of beat down by how disappointing, because that's how I felt this morning. I felt two things. Yeah. I felt disappointed that we've the country's kind of turned towards something that I personally feel is a touch negative. Mm-hmm. But I also felt like I'm in a bubble here. Like, I haven't seen you on my Twitter feed. If you said anything,
honestly, I was like, it's going to be hung Parliament. Seeing how much I didn't get involved this time, as I said, like it didn't feel true to me. But seeing how many people around me did, I was like, oh, maybe it'll be a hung parliament. I'm just hearing, Youthquake was trending on Twitter, and I thought, maybe like I'm seeing the queues. I'm like, fuck, maybe like young people really they're going to change something here.
Yeah.
And you saw the results. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
It's the bubble effect, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously that's the other thing as well. All opinions are valid as long as they're not sort of shouty and it's just about putting blame on the other one. That was the other thing I felt disgusted by. Every single one of these debates, people weren't answering the questions.
Yeah, but that's politics, And that's why.
But I think that's where I think say you talk about YouTube and that changing landscape of that. I think I want to sort of sit on the side of hope and think that the whole landscape of politics is so disappointing now that a new wave has to come, I think.
Yeah, I'd say maybe that wave will come in the form of like us taking responsibility for ourselves and our own individual states. And I don't want to use the word spirituality, but I think that is where a lot of answers can be found. Because everything in this world is almost like against that. But I think what joins us all together is how one we all really are, and the experience of life really is one of connectivity and seeing how familiar and true and just how similar we are. I think that's what politics plays upon really well, is that it plays upon our fears and it plays upon our identities and our believed identities, that I am this guy who's Serbian and I've been through this, and that means that if you say this about me, I'm going to say this about you, but that leads to conflict.
Yeah.
And I think when people can point fingers and you can be fine with yourself because you know that isn't the truth, you can deflect things a lot more easier and move on with life and see the unity of life.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's what politics does really well, to disturb and mask this picture that we're not similar. When in reality, I've grown up in London around everyone, people that on maybe paper I shouldn't get along with, and we do, because
why not?
Why not? Exactly. Due to story and history and what's happened, and I think because we believe all these stories and histories and experiences and pain we've been through, we can be triggered. And then that leads to conflict. And
I think the evidence, the sort of technology creates a machine that leads to that.
Machine,
it's got to be.
Now we have
be extremes, right?
Yeah, but now we have another filter, which is built on attention, and negativity drives attention, and it's kind of like another cycle of our human madness. And I think that's what we need to see, is how we have to see our own madness to then understand the madness of another person.
Yeah.
And accept that. But then rise above it and see how similar we really are.
I was reading this thing, and it was talking about, there's basically two ideas of thought in terms of someone being the way that they are, or not being the way they are. Basically, it's talking about change, right? And there's one school of thought that talks about your past is what kind of makes you who you are and what you do. And another one it talks about purpose, is what can create change and make you be or do whatever you want to do. And I'd like to just kind of talk about both with you, because another thing that you were talking about with Will was a sort of duality. And it's fun, like, as soon as I heard that word, that was something that I was intrigued to talk to you about, because I think that's another great perspective that you have that I don't, is as someone who's come over to this country and has that duality in terms of feeling British and also feeling Serbian. I think that's a really interesting.
No, it's fascinating.
A really, really interesting thing. So if we go past first, I'd love to talk about your childhood a little bit. So you came over when you were 6?
Five, 6. Yeah.
What can you remember from that sort of period of time?
That was pretty cool, man. I just remember, obviously, 92 was when 91 to 95 is the Yugoslav Wars.
Can you remember much about that kind of landscape during that time?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, I do remember once being woken up by some sort of bomb.
Wow.
I don't know, I might have been 3. But I just remember like waking up in a room and there was like an explosion, and then I don't know where it exploded. I don't know, I just remember it. That's just kind of stuck in my memory as a kid. And I remember like being in some sort of like shelter, where we're like going into some shelter. I was just sitting on like my grandma's lap, and it's dark. And I remember at one point just like driving through some forest.
And what did your parents do, and where did you grow up?
My mum she was a doctor, so she saw a lot of like stuff that was happening. Wow. And my dad was, I grew up in a part of Croatia which was predominantly Serbian ethnically. And I believe in those days Croatia declared independence, but then the Serbs in Croatia tried to declare their own independence and didn't accept Croatia's terms of independence. And I think that's when it gets really tricky. I tried to stay away from the political side of it because for me I was only a child.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And looking back and what could have been or what was right or what was wrong, I think war, there's never good in war in any aspect or conflict. So maybe in an idealistic world I would have wished it all stuck together and Yugoslavia remained one. We definitely would have probably won a World Cup by now or a Euros. So I think there was a lot of benefits potentially staying together. But what it gave me, I think, as I grew up, it gave me this kind of perspective of how we can be turned against each other so easily. That someone who lived together before would now kill each other from all sides and all angles. And seeing that and kind of growing up with it and going through my own little phase when I was young, witnessing what was going around me of thinking I was like Serbia and neo-nationalism and stuff. But then growing out of that and seeing how that's pointless because that just creates division between people that I get along with.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was interesting just coming to the UK, like I didn't write the English alphabet, I wrote Cyrillic, like Russian writing, Serbian Cyrillic, and I wrote my name in Cyrillic when I first came to this country and the teacher was like, what the hell is that? Yeah, and it was always that you kind of...
Was that in Tottenham?
No, I've lived in like 13 different areas.
Right.
I moved to like West London when I first came here. It was like a little...
So you should be a QPR fan.
Yeah, possibly QPR. QPR should be a QPR Chelsea, but I ended up choosing Liverpool somehow. But I think it just shows that kind of experience of growing up and then growing up around people that were bitter and
in this country.
Yeah, because they had to leave, they were displaced. We claimed asylum here and managed to get like a British passport after 5-6 years. Many people stayed. There's a lot of displacement in that region in general, and a lot of death and a huge darkness, I think, unfortunately happened, where people, I would say, it shows you the human madness in its worst form. So having kind of had an experience of that and growing up around it and witnessing people talk, I used to have a lot of people come up to me because the Serbian government at that time and paramilitaries, there was atrocities committed by Serbs. But then growing up here, and obviously that's what's portrayed in the media, and people telling me, oh, you're the only Serb I like. Oh, like you're a good Serb. Like, oh, wow, I mean, my family told me to hate Serbs, but I like you. And I just kind of fascinating to kind of hear that growing up, and people would even say like, don't be friends with him, he's Serb.
Really?
Yeah.
So, and what's your sort of emotional reaction? Like,
I think then I was young, I didn't really know what was going on, so you're just like, I still get it to this day sometimes. Yeah. And I don't blame those people because they've obviously had a story painted, maybe they've had things happen to them. But that's why I think it shows you that they're so important that we take people for people and not what maybe the portrayal of those people are. Because I am not a representation of it. You're not a representation of everything bad an English person has done. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so that's what I mean. I think we have to look deeper and beyond these identities that we have. So for me, it was interesting, man. It was just like, obviously tricky. You feel like a bit of an outsider growing up, and I guess at times I felt a lot of like injustice. Like, why do people think I'm bad when
I'm all right.
I've done nothing wrong?
Yeah.
Like I've left this place and I'm just young growing up, and then this country where I'm from, what media said, what people have done, I now have to carry. Yeah. And you're like, this isn't fair. Like, I'm genuinely cool with everyone. I have no problem with a Croatian or a Bosnian or an Albanian. Because the Balkans is like that, isn't it? Yeah. People are very passionate. I think perhaps they're just too similar to each other. But the fact that people could be so divided for me has always been a bit of like a learning experience of like how important it is to see beyond things. And also the importance of laughter. Because growing up through that, and when I go back home, people, the defense, people, how do they get through it? They laugh. But they laugh at everything. They laugh at dark things, they laugh at positive things. But I think there has been that element of darkness from where I'm from. but it showed me how important it is to not shy away from it, accept it, and also laugh at it.
Yeah.
Because if we don't see the commonality between me and you, we're always going to be in disagreements. If we let territories and borders and flags and our stories define us, I think that's potentially a dangerous path. Because I've seen it happen, and now kind of seeing it happen in the UK with right-wing nationalism and left-wing, whatever it is, extreme left-wing, and you just kind of go, wow, like, I feel like it's like history's repeating itself in a way through my life. But that's why, I don't know, I guess I've always been very questioning, coming from a place that I'm from, always questioning things. I've always felt like we need to question things, we can't take things for face value. And yeah, I'm kind of at that place now where I've kind of gone a bit more into a spiritual path, I'd say.
Is that partly because it's almost like, what can you trust?
Exactly,
and that's something
sure.
you feel like you can trust.
And what can you trust is your inner intuition and peace, and then seeing how I keep on saying it, how similar we all are. But also then that comes that thing like we can't take these things so seriously. Well, what's being served to us, we can't take so seriously. I can't take myself so seriously. Because if I do, that means I'm fragile. So if I take myself seriously, if you say something, I might get all up in arms about it. But if I don't, I could laugh with you and we keep it moving.
Yeah.
But I think those are the little things that we need to break down the psychology of humans and how we can be so easily divided.
And it's context as well, isn't it? Like context and perspective with a lot of things.
Oh, it's huge.
Because if you're, say for example, you start I make content, so this is where I go to straight away. But like, say you're going to do a panel show, and you're going to get the context already set. Right, so we need one person who's talks like this, and we need another person doing like
exactly.
this. So, and then we're just going to smash you two together now. That's the context that's already created. Whereas if you could go, right, guys, the aim of this is to let's get a solution. We've got a real problem with Brexit. No one seems to be getting on. No blaming. Like, tell us, how can we sort this out?
I think people don't want
a different perspective, a different context.
But that's what we're doing. Is like, I think humans right now, we're clashing our perspectives, but it's because we're not trying to understand one another and see.
There's a lack of endeavour there.
And I even say like people that vote for Brexit and hate immigrants, etc., etc. I want to understand that person and why he might want me out of the country, why he thinks I'm a bloody foreigner. I want to understand him. And I think when you try to understand him, you see there potentially is a similarity between us, and that is that we are just being brainwashed. We've been brainwashed, by stories, the media, the environment we're in. You don't have a job and you blame it on this, and this person does this, and it's just a constant game, but it just feels like a circle. I think like having observed it, taking kind of more a step back from everything, observing it all, just kind of going in a circle, this thing of going in a circle, and no one's ever like going, oh, let's stop. Like, how can we just stop this? Can we just breathe?
Yeah.
Take a minute to relax. Let's have a day off from all this. Let's just see what's going on. And we don't live in that environment.
No.
And I think that's what I mean, is like the environment that we live in doesn't allow us to be at peace. And I think that's why it's important to engage in and also face our fears, face what scares us the most, and not run away from them, and take control of our own internal processes. I think that's what one thing happened to me was like when I spoke to Katie Hopkins. And I remember just like the internal things that were happening with me is like I had all these stories about this woman, and I was angry, and there was a lot of like emotion there, and then she was trying to trigger me, and then they're still there, but I kind of kept it straight. And at the end of it, I went, what the hell just happened? How did she manage to make me feel like this? And I said, whoa, that means I've given her power to make me feel like this. And then it kind of led to, and since that point and many other points, I've been like, whenever I feel some sort of negativity or fear or whatever it is, I go, whoa, what have I believed in to allow that person to make me feel like that?
Yeah.
Because if I just change my perspective, they can't make me feel nothing. I can be at peace. And whatever they say, I can be like, and I think that's the power we do hold as people, is that we can be at peace and equanimity, but nothing in the external world serves that.
Yeah. So the only way is to look inward.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's from my experience anyway, I would say the only way is to look inwards, really.
And yeah,
Because the answers are not out there. And I've done it with relationships, I've done it with football, I've done it with like identity, I've done it with like thinking of this, thinking of that, and then after a while, nothing fulfills you, because nothing can fulfill you, I feel, without you going inwards first. That's a journey and a process. It's not like, oh, now you're in, and it's like, oh, wow, great.
Because you get, it's like, I think you can kind of get, you're talking about like, sort of like option paralysis. It's kind of, I think that the way I interpret it myself is that like I go, when I do, like when you just said there, like, can everyone just stop? Let's just stop for a second. When you do that yourself, you can kind of go, oh, okay, so this is the lay of the land. Right, I need to think and feel this way. I need to stop concentrating on that. But if you don't stop and do that, then you're
literally
just
being
doing this
like,
constantly.
you're in the waves,
being
right?
moved around. Yeah, you're in the waves.
I almost said like, it's like a stream. I was talking to my friend recently, and it's like life and the world we live in is like a big stream. You know, there's like when you watch those movies and there's like a thing at the end. I think that's death. Yeah. Potentially is the is the leap into, you know, what's it called, the waterfall.
Yeah.
And you've got those streams going through the mountains, and I think that is existence almost. It's like the streams of going through the mountains.
Yeah.
But then there are the banks on the side, and there are things happening on the side, and while we're in this stream, we think the stream is the reality. But if we maybe look and manage to try to get to the other side and stop, hop off a bit, and watch the stream, and you go, whoa, this is mad. But I was in it and fully thought that was my reality. Yeah. I think once you take that minute out, you can then also come back in the stream and navigate. But then at times you can still jump back out. Yeah. And then eventually, you know.
I used to always find out with football, like we play, say you play centre midfield, you're like, this is so quick, and then you get dropped or you get injured or whatever, and then you be on the subs and you watch me go, this is terrible. I've got so much time. Like I think it's a similar thing.
Awareness. I think that's that kind of awareness. I think this world needs a bit more self-awareness. Yeah. We all need to be a bit more self-aware of ourselves. And not be in this like state of always fighting each other. I think understanding is key. And I don't think the UK is going to turn into Yugoslavia, thank God. You know, we don't need more war. But you can almost see it in a lesser level playing out. People have been divided, you know, Scotland wants independence.
Same in America.
Ireland, America. And I feel because the Civil War is basically this is all a precursor to that. That's the ultimate madness, is that. Is when people genuinely turn against each other. They believe the madness so much, they become so sensitive and in fear that they have to kill, or they feel they have to kill. Yeah. And I think, you know, we're not going to get to that point here, but if we just manage to draw back and see what's happened in the world and ask why, it's a psychological thing. It's a thought thing. It's it's not so surface value. And when you break down that psychology and you break down why this is all happening, you can maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe we can find a better way to get along with each other. Yeah,
I think the big starting point with that though comes from we need those leaders to not be in the stream. We need those leaders to just get to the side themselves for a second and
that's not going to happen. That's why I think it's more important for us. Well,
not the current ones. Not the current ones. I think we need to I have enough optimism to believe that there can be someone that can, I mean, maybe I'm being naive in terms of the sort of pitfalls and the sort of skullduggery that happens in terms of getting to become a leader, Boris. But there's, once those people, you hope. I think that's what people got excited about with Corbyn.
Yeah,
is that he was like a normal guy. He was above that for a second. But yeah, even he was, when I see his tweets, jumping on these different stories that just to kind of push the negative on one side instead of concentrating on the solution. It's frustrating. I would love to talk to you about identity as well, because is that something that did you find an element of that in football?
Yeah, huge escapism for me. Oh man, I love football. That's where I could go and shout and scream.
Did you feel like you had a struggle in terms of identity, in terms of, say, moving about a lot and coming over to this country, or?
Yeah, I would say so. I'd say it just expressed itself in different ways.
How would you explain that? Because I don't think I don't understand that, if I'm honest.
Well, it's like I guess a feeling of non-belonging, and you feel misunderstood. Yeah. Because you're not from here, your experiences aren't rooted in an experience of a British person. It's someone from
Or gets validated maybe a little
maybe
bit.
validated. You know, you've gone through a different world, lived a different experience. So when you come into the world here, you know your words, the way you speak, the way you view the world is different. So you're not going to find many people that that are going to understand you, and when you do, you're like, oh, this is amazing. But I think for football, it was like, I love football, I was playing it, and as I grew up and experienced more of the world, you know, it allowed me just to express myself. You know, I go to the stands and shout and scream and be the loudest guy in the
Were there
stands.
any people that, you know, you're saying when you find that guy or girl, whoever it was there someone?
Yeah, I think what the beauty of it is that we can find connection in anyone. And
is there any that
there was
come to
always
mind?
that feeling of like, we are human for me
Okay.
as growing up, because seeing kind of people around me, and I guess having those experiences of people telling me like, you're not good because you're this. It never really connected, and then it almost made me feel sorry for those people,
That's great.
because
That's not always the case.
yeah, because that isn't the case. Because my friends coming here, my best friends when I first came here were Albanian, and at that time Serbia and Albania and Kosovo crisis was happening. There was a lot of ethnic tensions and once again like bloodshed. And I was between Albanian ethnics and Serbian ethnic people. But coming here, it was funny because my best friends were Albanian from Kosovo, this place where. So I was displaced from a different region. They were having I say they, but people that similar background as them are having these conflicts, and my best friends are from there. So technically we shouldn't get along, but we did, and we had a great time. So no one could tell me to hate someone else. I couldn't believe it. And you can get wrapped up in it, I think, when sports comes along and there's a rivalry and these emotions come along. And I think that's where it's a healthy way to express these rivalries and disagreements. But there's also an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
So I think as long as we live in a world where there's difference, there's going to be conflict.
I feel like it's such a core thing with you, it seems like. And that's what I love about these interviews, because I get to learn more about you.
I just want to understand the world. For me, it's like I want to understand the world. To understand the world, you need to understand yourself.
Do you believe in things happening for a reason and things like that?
Yeah, for sure.
It's okay if you don't.
No, I think everything's a lesson.
Because I feel like when I talk to different people, like say like the choices they make in terms of being a course or whatever, it's often things that are kind of within you, because you therefore then have an interest in them, and then you can get put on a platform that can allow you to explore that even more so. I feel like it feels like with your life up to this point, like that. I think that's the thing I enjoy the most with your work at Copa 90. I loved watching you at the World Cup, and I loved you like meeting these different people and different cultures and jumping into all those places. And it feels like that now chatting to you, you're the perfect person to do that. Like other people might not have been able to do that because they might have had some form, they just wouldn't have been able to do it in the same way and talk about duality, both be that kind of easy to get onto and welcoming, but also for the sort of mechanics of the company that you're working for, like relatable to a whole generation of people. Like, do you ever think about that? Like kind of the sort of the fact that like a lot of guys have grown up with you.
Yeah. No, not really. But I've become more grateful for it and like aware of like, some people know who I am. That's interesting. Like, people stop you in the street and they say hi, I take a photo.
That can be scary
and
too.
It can be at times, but I do like it. I think because I do believe in I do feel there's a connectivity between us all that it's like, it's cool, man. You think I'm this person, but I'm just same as you.
Yeah, and I think you've seen it from the move to your own channel.
Yeah,
and how well it's
really
gone. Like it's nice.
Yeah,
like
just want to have a laugh, and I don't know, man. We'll see what kind of comes from the future. I have no clue what's going to happen.
Well, that was the other part of it.
Fucking clue,
so it had past. You were talking about past.
Yeah.
So I guess the answer to that, so talking about your past for a second there, then, do you feel like your past makes you who you are, or not? And who you are going to be.
How much you let it define you.
Okay.
I think it does to some extent. This is maybe where I think like fate exists.
Yeah.
Is because if we are not aware of the past and how it's impacting us, fate happens. Because you can have foresight, and a lot of what's happening is almost written out, because what you're putting out there, the energy you're putting out there, is leading to the next step every time.
Yeah, you're taking rights and lefts without even realising.
Yeah, and that's always waiting for you. What you've put out there is waiting for you. What you're putting out there is waiting for you. So I think that's in a way where fate exists, but at the same time, once you can look around and I think view your past from a more 360 angle, rather than like I am my past, you can shape your future.
So this is the other side of it, the purpose bit.
You can shape it.
The idea with purpose...
And you can maybe find purpose.
Well, so the idea is that in terms of changing and what you're going to do, so some people go, oh, your past creates your future because, you know, things that have happened, be it trauma or not trauma or skills or whatever, that kind of lead to all these things. But the other idea of it is that purpose creates your kind of your future, and that your past is absolutely irrelevant, because as long as your purpose is strong enough, that will create all the changes again that you kind of need.
Nice.
So how do you feel about purpose, and where are you, again, no answers, but like where are you at with that?
I'm still like finding it.
Because I think you're in we're in a strange landscape. You're someone who's kind of pushed away from that a touch at times. With the kind of, it's not been that formulaic stuff that you've done. You've done the stuff that's like real and modern and exciting and new. So with that in mind, does that make having a kind of obvious pathway and purpose a bit harder?
100%.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of like a jack of all trades. I get distracted easily. I want to do everything and be in control at the same time, which is a bit manic. You can't do that. So I'd say for me, my purpose is peace. I think as I've matured, I don't know, it changes. But even everything I did in my creative world past, I mean, like my comedy, my videos, and everything, there was never like an end goal. There was never like, this is going to lead to that, and this is going to... It was more like, this is fun, I'll do it. This is jokes, this is a good idea, I'll do it. There was never like, oh yeah, my purpose is here, you know, I'm going for a goal. Like I've never...
And do you feel like that now?
The
do you still
goal
feel like
shit.
that now?
In a way, yeah. I just think with more acceptance of that for my life.
Yeah.
I think for everyone's life it's different. And I think purpose is important. But I think for I'd say the purpose of my existence is to find peace, is to connect with people. And whatever I end up doing along the side is just a byproduct of living. But
I think that's a purpose in itself, isn't it? Being a good person, right?
Good. Because good is also...
You're not bothered about being good?
Relative. No, because good, of course. But I think that's just like human. Like, like to be good is like...
Well, you say that.
Be human, man. Like,
no, I don't think that's true. I don't think that is true. I think it's not a focus for a lot of people, and you'll cut corners. And
I've cut corners in my life. You know what I mean? So
yeah, of course.
I feel like when you face it, it's like none of us are good.
I think
we paint pictures that we're good.
I think a desire to be good.
Yeah.
I think that there's something in that, you know.
I mean, I'm always kind of formulating new ways of how I express myself. So maybe I'm not actually. I don't know what you're saying there. I'm actually not sure. I think being true and honest is more important than being good.
Yeah, I like that.
I think that comes good. Then is underneath that. I think truth and honesty, and then good. Because what if your good is a lie, and let's say it's like, oh, I'm worried about your feelings. I'm gonna lie to you because that's good. Right. Am I, in the long run, being good? Or would the truth, or perhaps a statement that might hurt you, be more of more fruition for you in the future than me kind of being good out of not wanting to hurt? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's kind of like breaking it down more.
That's interesting.
You know, I'd rather someone was just like straight up, like real and honest with me. For me.
Yeah, fair enough. Like, that's a question I asked Geordie was like, would you rather be liked or respected? Yeah. And I think there's maybe something similar in that. I feel like sometimes maybe you're going to be true and honest. That's more the sort of respected element of it than being nice for the sake of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I go through that, so I don't know exactly the answer.
Yeah.
Perhaps for me, maybe I've wanted to be liked all my life, so I would have done things just because I want to be liked. And that creates a lot of anxieties and fears.
Yeah, that's true.
But respect is a totally different thing. I think now I'm entering more the respect category, whereas before I was more the liked category.
Yeah. I think that's your 20s as well. I think there is that moment that, like, I think you were saying it was you're sort of like, was it like 25, 26, where you kind of then go, oh, okay, well I know all that, but I'm not sure I'm happy with all of that.
Yeah.
So you need to feel like you need to start, you used the phrase you wanted to start over a little bit.
Yeah, you do. I feel like that's what I've been doing in my life since 25, 6. It's like, everything I thought was real, I was like, oh shit. Everything I thought was real kind of isn't real. This is insane. I need a therapist. Do you know what I mean?
Have you done that? I've never done that.
I haven't done therapy, no. I might do soon though, but I do a lot of like self-therapy, but maybe the time is coming to... I think like all the answers are in us, and the therapist allows for you to just maybe draw them out. Yeah. But at the end of the day, all they're doing is it's in you, you know. I'm
slightly nervous of those like prejudgments that have come from a book. That makes me a little bit nervous.
It could be a bit scary, yeah.
One question I ask absolutely everyone, so I need to ask you as well, is what keeps you up at night?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I sleep pretty well, man.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, just kind of go to bed.
You're a sleeper?
By 2 a.m. I'm in bed and I'm sleeping. I think I only recently had like 1 or 2 days when I was a bit, I think, what was that anxious about? There was a lot of things happening. I had to reply to emails. I didn't do them. I couldn't make a decision about something.
Right.
I think like when I can't make a decision, or I'm fearful of a decision I'm about to make, or I'm not sure what's going to happen, the unexpected can make me like stay up. But that happens like, I've only been once every blue moon, man.
That's good, man.
Yeah, that's why I just...
It sounds you got some peace there, then.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, it's a journey. And someone said something really interesting. They said like, we think we're like humans having like a spiritual experience, but what we are is like spiritual beings having a human experience. Something is almost like reversing what we think existence is, and then it's about perspective. Yeah, it's about perspective, I think, you know.
I think that's
a lot of great brains and people that haven't been listened to back in the past. There's a lot of truth in, I think, in medicine, and many things are changing right now where we're kind of shifting our focus into consciousness and awareness and self-care and taking care of yourself and being healthy, being fit mentally. All of these things, I think, can create a better world. If we create a better world for ourselves, that's going to impact people around us. I think that's how real change happens.
Yeah.
I think political and big social change,
would be nice.
I think it leads to more conflict if we aren't in a place of peace.
Right.
Because it's just a reflection of our... that is just a reflection of our own inner selves.
That's true.
I would say. And that's just kind of the yin and yang and everything, and the world and the universe is all really muddled and mixed together, isn't it?
Yeah.
There isn't that almost like black and whiteness. This is that. It's all a bit, you know,
somewhere in the middle.
You know, it's all a bit grey. I think that's it. We're not talking, you know, we need more grey.
We do need
accept
more
the grey.
Yeah,
and being
accept the grey. Accept the grey.
Whereas, you know, I think we're always seeking safety, and that just doesn't really exist.
Yeah. Last thing I want to talk to you about was, I did, so when I get ready for an interview, I write down words.
Yeah.
And I think one that came to me straight away with you is expression. Like,
I like that.
But I think that's a huge thing that people love about you, is your freedom. When I think of you, and obviously it's on screen most of the time, but I feel like there's a freedom and an expression there. Is that where you're happiest? Possibly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love it. I think we should be able to do and say anything and everything, and that's life, isn't it, man? Life is freedom, really. And it's how we perceive things that define how we experience everything.
Maybe that in itself, then, is like, I think that's why people kind of are drawn to you. Though
expression is great.
It's like, yeah, mate.
I haven't I've become less expressive. I don't know. I think in life you go through waves, isn't it?
Yeah, you do seem a bit more chill.
No, yeah, for sure, more chilled.
That's okay.
I doubt this is my expression as well. You know, it's like a different type of expression.
Yeah.
It's not as out there, but still like my out there moments. I've kind of like more like before I was like a fizzy bottle. When you open up a Coke, that was my expression. Whereas like now it's like a mulled wine.
Nice.
You know, my experiencing and expression of life is a bit more like, you know, it's taking time and it's cooking and it's... Whereas before it was like, sometimes you might get, you know, and that's exciting and it's fun.
Yeah.
But the mulled wine kind of way is maybe more...
Okay, that's cool.
More of my expression now.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? I'm enjoying that type of expression.
It was the moment where I spotted that with you was the interview on Gasworks.
Yeah, I was in a weird
I think you
space
had a
then.
shirt. Yeah, you had your shirt off. It was summer, wasn't it? Yeah, and I was like, you seem like it wasn't fed up. It was just like you were needing to leave some shit somewhere.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that interview. I
not?
told Poet and the boys. I can't lie, I ignored you a lot, and I'm sorry, man. But not that I ignored you. There was just a lot happening in my life that I didn't. But wasn't really responding.
Because you were having a conversation with yourself. How can man talk to himself?
For
weeks.
Not weeks, but years. That's years. Look how many years.
No, to be fair, there was response at the start.
I responded at the beginning. I did it in a place where, like, in my head mentally, I wasn't that great. In my kind of like, I was still kind of trying to figure many things out. There was a lot of blockages. I didn't really want to talk about much.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you speak, you want it to come from a place of more experience rather than like, I think this is happening to me and now I've got to be funny on this show, but I don't even feel funny. I'm just like, I was a bit fed up at that time, to be fair. I was kind of like, oh, this is just
one of those, yeah.
You know, you're like, what's this? Or, you know, I was going through like a bit of a nihilistic phase. And if you look into nihilism, everything is pointless. There's no value to anything. Life is pretty much this dreadful thing. And I was kind of going through that phase where I kind of felt like everything was...
So like a green screen and like two guys like being hilarious, like, but bit crazy is not the vibe you're on at the time.
Not what I'm after right now in my life.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I rode that wave and now I'm in like a bit of more of a calmer place.
That's good, mate.
Big up, my bro. Thank you.
Mate, it's good.
That was sick.
Look, that was the process. If you've enjoyed it, then there's a load of other ones to enjoy. Check out the pod with Vuj and Poet. It's brilliant. It's really, really good.
Have a huge nice.
Have a huge nice.
Here's like the socials popping up for the editor. Here's my socials. Here's my channel as well that I have. And
okay. Any more?
Pops up. And here's
my channel.
Here's your channel popping up.
There we go.
And we go. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for having me, man.
My pleasure.
It was a really good chat, and like I'm glad we did it today, and we didn't do it before.
Yeah, I agree.
Thinking naturally,
it's nice. These things happen.
And you're very easy to talk to. I think sometimes people don't ask people aren't as good at questions, and like you're very open. You're open at asking questions.
Enough.
No, but it's you have to praise people that are doing their job.
I'm just. That is the whole point of this thing for me. It's like it's
a good
really
name.
like
it's a good name for the podcast.
Yeah, I think we are all constantly going through shit, and it's like. It's not the end of the world. It's not forever.
Yeah, it does pass.
But it's interesting. And the answers, it's in the grey, like you said.
That's important to, I think, pass on to young people watching, is that everything does pass.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people go through, it's a tough time mentally and emotionally right now, living in the world we live in. And I think that's very important to note that everything we do go through passes. Totally. Bad and good. It's about letting go,
And taking control. I think that's the big one for me.
Control.
But yeah. I don't know when this is coming out.
It's a dance. It's a dance.
It's a dance. I don't know when this is coming out, but if it's before Christmas, then have a great Christmas. If it's not, then have a great New Year.
Have a great.
See you next time.
Have a nice.
Have a nice.